In the heart of the Pacific Ocean, covered in mist and mystery, lies Nan Madol, an ancient wonder island believed to be built by giants. Often referred to as the Atlantis of the Pacific, this ancient city is an architectural marvel built on top of a lagoon on a series of 92 small artificial islands. Massive stone blocks, some weighing up to 50 tons, serve as quiet reminders to the ingenuity and aspirations of a civilization long gone. From rulers believed to possess mystical powers to whispered tales of giants, sorcery, and flying dragons, the legends of Nan Madol are as numerous as the small islets themselves. But what led to its astonishing construction? Is it possible that Nan Madol was once part of a much larger, now sunken continent known as Mu? What supernatural forces were behind the movement of its massive stones? And could figuring out the mysteries of Nan Madol actually show us something mind-blowing about what the ancient people were capable of? We'll try to find out together in the new episode of Secret Origins. Welcome. Nan Madol is also known as the best kept secret in archaeology. It is located in the Pacific Ocean in the southern eastern part of Pohnpei Island and consists of 92 artificially created islands in regular shapes with enormous walls, fortresses, and other structures constructed from massive basalt blocks. These islands are separated by navigational channels, forming a total area of 28 square kilometers. The name Nan Madol comes from the Pohnpian language and means the place in between. It is situated in what is now the Federated States of Micronesia, north of Australia, with Polynesia and Melanesia nearby. A Belgian expedition that discovered it in the early 19th century described it as a terrifying dead city. The basalt used to build Nan Madol can be found in the form of natural hexagonal columns with lengths reaching up to 5 meters and weighing 50 tons. The defensive walls, which have been uncovered through archaeological findings and were used in its construction, are 6 meters thick and weigh up to 25 tons. The height of the structures is equally impressive, reaching up to 20 meters in height. Undoubtedly, Nan Madol is one of the most astonishing megalithic structures and the only one of its kind built on a coral reef. Research indicates that the construction of Nan Madol likely began around 1180 CE, which is associated with the rule of the Sodular dynasty at that time. Nan Madol is considered to have been a ceremonial, cultural, and political center for the rulers of that era. Their rule continued until around 16,000 CE, after which the complex became uninhabited. However, this theory was quickly challenged. Further excavations and studies have led to another hypothesis, that it is equally likely that the structure of Nan Madol may have existed as early as the 2nd century BCE. Both theories, however, fail to answer the question: how did they achieve such an architectural feat? There is no basalt in the island itself. In fact, the closest place where basalt can be obtained is about 30 kilometers away, reachable by water. Archaeologists estimate that approximately 700,000 tons of basalt were needed for the entire construction. In practice, this means that to build Nan Madol, tens of thousands of workers would have had to be engaged for a whole decade. The mystery deepens with the finding that Pohnpei could not have supported more than 800 people. The nearest inhabited islands are about 500 kilometers away, and the total population that could potentially inhabit the lands within a 1,000-kilometer radius could not have exceeded 50,000 people. This suggests that under these conditions, it would have taken several centuries, assuming the workers had the necessary facilities to construct a project like Nan Madol. This raises the next question. How could such large and heavy stones be transported over water using the available vessels of that time? One suggestion is that bamboo rafts were used. Despite the somewhat speculative nature of this hypothesis, attempts were made to transport stones weighing only between 1 and 2 tons. However, the experiment proved unsuccessful, as most of the raft sank with the stones. Another scientific theory tells that the ancestors of the islanders migrated from the small island of Lelu, part of the larger Kasri Island located near Pompeii. The structures built there resemble Nan Madol. However, radiocarbon dating suggests that the construction of Lelu happened much later than that of Nan Madol, making it more likely that the migration occurred in the opposite direction. Most of human history is accessible to us thanks to the writings discovered by researchers. However, the case of Nan Madol does not allow for such an approach. No records have been found from the presumed time of its construction because there was no known writing system in this region at that time. The history of Pompeii is transmitted solely through oral traditions passed down through generations living on the island. Despite carbon analysis suggesting that Nan Madol was built less than a millennium ago by the Sodilur dynasty, the local population believes differently. They hold that the history of Nan Madol is very different and attribute its origin to a group of 7 men and 9 women who, in search for a new home, were directed by a spirit octopus to an island in the Pacific Ocean. Upon their arrival, they found the island to be no more than 5-6 meters in size, and to inhabit it, they needed to use magical powers to call forth the rest submerged underwater. The newcomers named the island Pompeii, which in their language meant altar on the stones, and they constructed a stone altar in the center. We don't know much about these settlers, but over the centuries, the island became home to 5 more colonization groups, according to the accounts of the locals. All of them possessed magical abilities and could use telekinesis to rearrange the islands as they pleased. After them, the last settlers arrived who had lived on these lands before the Sodilur dynasty. They were twin brothers named Olisihpa and Olusohpa. According to the legends, they crossed the ocean in search of a place to build an altar to worship their god of agriculture. They settled on Pompeii and created the city of Nan Madol, where they built their altar in the center. The construction, which astounds scholars and researchers, according to the legend, happened with the help of magical powers. Stones weighing 50 tons levitated in the air and arranged themselves in the manner we see today. The story also tells that after one of the brothers died of old age, the other declared himself king and married one of the local women. A son was born, and the tall stature was passed down through the generations for 12 more generations. However, is this merely a myth or a long-forgotten history showcasing the capabilities of the human race? And is there a better explanation than this? Naturally, this legend is not taken seriously by scholars, and the island has become an object of study over the centuries. The first documented case of outsiders visiting the island occurred in 18,000 when a trading ship commanded by a surgeon named Dr. Campbell anchored on the shores of Nan Madol. A little later, in 1836, he described Nan Madol as the island of ascension. Why? Campbell was astonished by the structures, and in his writings he said that the island was the work of a race far surpassing the present generation, over whose memory many ages have rolled and whose history has been utterly forgotten, whose grandeur and power can only be traced from the scattered remains of the structures they have reared, which are now crumbling away in everlasting silence, leaving to posterity the pleasure of speculation and conjecture. Other scholars, however, were not willing to rely on assumptions and were determined to unravel the mystery of Nan Madol. In 1873, anthropologist John Cuber arrived on the island. His journey to Nan Madol began as a worker in a trading company sent to explore Pacific islands. However, his anthropological nature led him to collect samples of various items during his travels. The ruins of Nan Madol attracted him so strongly that he decided to study the island from an anthropological perspective. The locals, upon seeing the newcomer, warned him that the ruins were guarded by the spirits of past rulers, and his curiosity could lead to his demise. But what scientist, driven by the desire to uncover such a mystery, would heed such a warning? From his excavations, he collected numerous ornaments, tools, and cryptic items. He described that the tombs were filled with human remains, surrounded by ornaments and disc-like objects with a hole in the center resembling coins. Similar rituals are observed today. An interesting fact is that in some of the tombs, the bones were found in precise numbers, 13. It is believed that this symbolized a higher status, and it is associated with the likelihood that the remains belonged to kings and leaders. In 1874, after studying the lands of Nan Madol and the substantial artifacts collected from the remains of ancient people who lived on these lands, John Cuber was ready to depart. Whether it was a coincidence or a fulfilled curse, we do not know, but shortly after leaving the lands of Pompeii with all the artifacts, Cuber's ship suffered a shipwreck. According to a companion of the anthropologist, the captain made an atypical error for his post and directed the ship towards a reef. They had to spend the night at Capella station, and the next morning they found their ship broken by the incoming water. The entire history of Nan Madol, collected by Cuber in several crates, now lies somewhere at the bottom of the ocean and remains lost to this day. Unfortunately for the scholar, this was just the beginning of his downfall. He later found himself unemployed as the company he worked for went bankrupt. This brought him back to Pompeii, where he decided to spend the rest of his life. He married a local woman and was briefly the father of 2 children who died in early childhood. The land he purchased was destroyed by a hurricane, and after rebuilding it with all his efforts, the local population burned it to the ground in protest during the Spanish rule. 23 years after first setting foot on the island, Cuber ended his life. Whether this unfortunate turn of events in his life was due to the curse of Nan Madol, we do not know, but we can trace the history of the next explorer of these lands. In 1907, Victor Berg, a German governor traveling through the Pacific waters, chose to focus his attention on exploring the secrets of Nan Madol. There, just like his predecessor Cuber, he encountered the local population who warned him about the danger he might bring upon himself by desecrating the tombs of their ancestor. Berg, as you might expect, paid no heed to the warnings of the islanders and delved into the exploration of the mystery that shrouded the island. His research took him even further than anthropologist Cuber. He discovered a sealed tomb, significantly larger in size compared to the others, measuring 80 by 60 meters and standing about 8 meters high. Access to the burial chamber was through a labyrinth. There, Berg came across human remains that were vastly different from those uncovered by Cuber. The skeletons were people, giants, with sizes reaching up to 3 meters in height. There were likely many more such tombs on the island. The fact is that this is not the first instance in which modern humans, in their search for their roots, have come across similar remains. In the Pacific islands of Samoa, Hawaii, and the Solomon Islands, there are also tales of a race of giants who appeared thousands of years ago. These stories go further, categorizing them not as one but as 3 types of giants: flying giants, sea monkey giants, and the so-called architect giants who lived at the bottom of the sea. Stories of giant humans are not limited to the islands of the Pacific. They are told all over the planet. Excavations in Yakutia, the northeastern part of Siberia, reveal that giants between 4 and 10 meters in size once lived on our planet. Aside from being physically more developed and stronger, studies suggest that they were also much more mentally advanced. As such, the mystery of Nan Madol and the legends told by the locals are becoming clearer and more creditable. However, these studies are relatively new, and Victor Berg may not have suspected the full scale of his discovery. Whether by chance or not, he never got the chance to personally recount what he had seen. The evening after his significant discovery, Berg found himself unable to sleep and observed the island's storm. However, this was no ordinary storm. In the distance, he heard a strange sound resembling one that emanates from a conch shell in the sky. Luminous small spheres appeared. The governor didn't pay special attention to the event. On the following day, as the warm rays returned to the usual tropical climate, he embarked on another research mission into the tombs of Nan Madol. However, he never reached his findings because on the way to the excavation site, his lifeless body fell to the ground without warning and without preceding symptoms. Doctors never found a logical explanation for his death. In the end, they concluded that the climate had brought Berg to exhaustion and caused sunstroke. However, this didn't align with the fact that the German governor had spent many years in the Pacific Ocean, traversing its islands and acclimating to the climatic conditions. The mystery surrounding his demise never cleared up. With the discoveries of the giants inhabiting Nan Madol, human curiosity grew even further. After the end of World War I, Pompeii became part of the Japanese territories. Human curiosity once again displayed its boundlessness when the Japanese undertook the mission to unravel the mystery of Nan Madol. Although not every discovery has made its way to us, their investigations exceeded the previous two. Unfortunately, a significant portion of the documentation collected during that time was destroyed during World War II. With more experience and advanced technology, the Japanese began to see the bigger picture, that Nan Madol was just a part of the island's history. On the ocean floor, they found the remaining part, consisting of an entire city. They discovered massive platinum coffers containing the remains of giants. A little later, in 1939, the German researcher Herbert Riedlinger delved into the depths of the Pacific Ocean to later describe the entire landscape in his book, The Boundless Ocean. At a depth of 30 meters, where no one had dared to look deeper into Nan Madol's history, scientists discovered an entire sunken city for unknown reasons. Beneath the ocean floor's corals, they found streets with stone arches, columns, monoliths, and remnants of houses. The site had already been explored by treasure hunters, but the only thing they had reached without the necessary equipment and technology was the incredible view of an island that had stood beneath the ocean's surface for thousands of years. However, the Japanese researcher had advanced enough technology to reach the precious metals sought by traders, such as silver ingots and pearls, remnants of the astounding city. The legends of Pompeii tell a story that deep beneath the ocean waves of Nan Madol lies a lost kingdom belonging to giants. Just as the myths of Nan Madol, these stories about the entire island of Pompeii turned out to be the very history that skeptical scientists only confirm. Clear evidence of a race of giants has been found all over the world, and the number of discoveries continue to grow. They are unearthed from lands across the globe. However, the most intriguing question, where do these giant beings come from, remains unanswered. One of the most captivating theories about their origins comes from the French writer Denis Sora, who proposes that if another celestial body were to approach Earth, our planet's gravity would significantly increase. This would lead to stronger tides and floods. In addition to this phenomena, another effect would be the enlargement of the sizes of all living things. Following this theory, one could conclude that gigantism in animals, plants, and humans should increase along with cosmic radiation. This radiation in turn leads to the transformation and mutation of tissues. If we turn to history, we find that this has already occurred. In 1902, the volcanic peak of Mount Pelée erupted on the island of Martinique, and it is said to be the largest volcanic disaster of the 20th century. Steam, volcanic gases, and ash engulfed the city of St. Pierre in less than a minute, taking the lives of about 30,000 people. It was followed by a rain of mud and ash. After the disaster, life on the island began to regenerate much faster than expected. Interestingly, every form of life within the area started to grow to giant proportions. Plants grew more than 3 times faster, animals gained enormous sizes, and each subsequent generation became even larger than the previous one. This, of course, included human beings. The scientists who studied this phenomena themselves grew between 10 and 15 centimeters during their stay in St. Pierre. The explanation for this astounding event is the emission of minerals released during the volcanic eruption. Radiation reaches its peak around 6 months after the event and then slowly begins to fade. Plants and animals transferred outside the boundaries of St. Pierre do not produce generations of giants. It is a fact that heightened levels of radiation can lead to extraordinary mutations. Could this have also happened on the island of Pompeii? Is it possible that all the legends of giants described in sacred scriptures and ancient lore are simply a part of our planet's history? Is contemporary humanity not living in a state of amnesia from which it strives to recover with every archaeological discovery and scientific investigation in an attempt to remember its true nature and potential? With each piece of the puzzle we put together, we realize that the whole picture is far more extensive. New questions continue to emerge, and we always seek new answers. Ultimately, it all boils down to proving what we already know. We bow before you and thank you for watching another episode of Secret Origins. Keep your minds open, and until we meet again.